Okay, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're dissecting the really intense market volatilities surrounding Intel in July 2026. We're going to analyze their immediate survival tactics and, honestly, their incredibly ambitious long-term tech strategy. Now, if you follow the semiconductor space at all, you know Intel is currently going through what is basically a live-fire test of survival and transformation. So we're going to break down the hard data, decode the technical patents, and really look at the real story behind the headlines.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the July 2026 crash. Then, the two strategic fronts Intel is fighting on. Third, the supply chain under pressure. Fourth, the XBM architectural revolution. And finally, playing the long game.
All right, part 1. The July 2026 crash. From rally to cold shower.
Looking at this massive number right here, the sheer scale of the 2026 rally is just staggering. To put this into perspective for you, back in August of 2025, Intel was sitting at a really low 1897, but from there, the stock absolutely skyrocketed. We are talking a 650% climb, hitting an all-time high of $142.35 on June 30th, 2026. The market was literally overflowing with optimism.
But, as this infographic brutally illustrates, that immense optimism evaporated almost overnight. Within the first few days of July, we saw this massive cold shower correction. The market cap corrected by 25%, dragging the price all the way down to the 105 to 110 range, just erasing those massive gains in a flash. Which leaves us all asking the obvious question, what exactly popped the balloon?
Well, the catalyst for the sudden pop was this. Reports surfaced that Intel's absolutely crucial 18A manufacturing process just will not achieve profitable yields until late 2026, or possibly even bleeding into 2027. You see, the market had heavily priced in a massive, flawless success for the second half of 2026. And when you miss a key manufacturing milestone in the foundry business, the market doesn't forgive, and it definitely doesn't forget.
Okay, moving to Section 2, two strategic fronts. High-stakes battles.
So checking out this side-by-side comparison, you can see Intel is fighting a war on two completely different fronts right now. On one side, you have Intel Foundry. It's their highest valued, but without a doubt, riskiest asset. They want to be a service for external clients, but in Q1 of 2026, they pulled in just $174 million in external revenue compared to a massive $2.4 billion operating loss. It's bleeding cash because it's in this early, painful transformational stage. Meanwhile, on the product division side, they still offer excellent single-core performance and hybrid architecture, but in the critical data center market, they are steadily losing ground to AMD's EPYC architecture. So they are literally losing their dominance right at the peak of an AI compute boom.
Which brings us to Section 3, supply chain under pressure, a demand problem.
Let's map out this cascade effect, because analysts point out that Intel's issue isn't really factory capacity, it's a structural demand problem. Step 1. AI and cloud clients place these massive priority orders. Step 2. Because of that, other sectors like the automotive industry literally get pushed to the back of the queue. And Step 3, and this is why this matters directly to us as consumers, to keep price points steady on devices, manufacturers are forced to offer configurations with less RAM and smaller SSDs, all while end client prices still creep higher. Basically, AI demand is forcefully shoving everything else down the line.
Entering our war room analysis here. If you look at this split graphic, we see a totally fractured market. On the left, you've got institutions like HSBC setting a $200 price target. They fully believe in the long-term structural value of Intel's foundry business. But on the exact opposite side, Bank of America is sounding the alarm, warning of a massive AI valuation bubble that threatens to drag the entire sector down. It is a true, highly volatile transitional zone.
I think analysts sum up their predicament perfectly with this quote. Intel is not a sinking ship, but a ship under repair, trying to change its engines while in the open sea. This captures their 2026 reality flawlessly. They're attempting a fundamental, highly dangerous structural pivot, all while actively having to fight off aggressive competitors like AMD, Samsung, and SK Hynix. Let's shift gears to Section 4, the XBM architectural revolution, bypassing HBM.
Okay, this is where it gets really fun for the tech heads out there. Right now, high bandwidth memory, or HBM, is the absolute gold standard. But instead of just trying to play catch-up, Intel is attempting to leapfrog the entire industry with a new patent called XBM, or cross-batch memory. You see, the fundamental problem with current HBM is that it's insanely expensive to make. It requires silicon interposers and complex micro-bump processes, basically building microscopic, highly expensive structural bridges just to stack chips vertically.
Let's look at this comparison table. Traditional HBM needs that expensive front-end routing we just talked about. XBM, it completely removes the silicon interposer. Instead, it builds the transistors directly into the chip's upper wiring, what's called the back-end of line, or BEOL, metal layers. By doing this, they are drastically reducing routing complexity and, more importantly, manufacturing costs.
So, what is your main takeaway from this specific engineering shift? Well, it means vastly better space efficiency. Utilizing the BEOL frees up crucial real estate for through-silicon vias, which is just vertical wiring that passes completely through a silicon wafer. And that translates to incredibly dense memory integration directly on the package. You get higher memory density, greater bandwidth, and highly flexible memory-on-package deployments. That is a massive, game-changing win for smaller form factor devices. Finally, Section 5. Playing the long game, 2030 and beyond.
Timing really is everything here. And as this timeline infographic lays out, XBM is absolutely not a quick fix for the 2026 crisis. In the short term, all eyes are glued to the Q2 earnings report and those delayed 18A profitable yields. The XBM technology is heavily tied to the ZAM architecture project they are developing with SoftBank. That places the actual commercial impact of this memory revolution way out beyond the year 2030. They are playing a very, very long game.
But we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, this massive ecosystem barrier. Even if XBM is technically superior hardware, the ecosystem is totally locked in right now. The entire AI software world is fundamentally optimized for Nvidia, and Nvidia relies on the parallel interfaces of traditional HBM. Intel's XBM relies on serial UCIe interfaces. That means for XBM to even work, it requires a fundamental, industry-wide shift in how software communicates with memory. And honestly, that is an enormous barrier to entry.
Ultimately, what we're looking at here is a classic strategy of disruptive innovation. Intel knows they simply cannot beat Samsung and SK Hynix in the current HBM optimization race. The South Korean giants already have that locked down with standard chiplets and fan-out packaging. So Intel is deploying a total architectural reboot to completely reset the rules of the game, hoping to render the current HBM race totally obsolete.
So, I'll leave you with this to ponder. Is this dual horizon strategy, bleeding cash on a massive 18A foundry pivot today while betting the farm on a radical XBM software rewrite tomorrow, a brilliant masterstroke of long-term engineering? Or is changing the engines in the open sea just too heavy a lift for a ship that is currently taking on water? Thank you for walking through this explainer with me, and definitely keep an eye on how these two horizons unfold.